Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. A new report shows that 45% of Americans do not pay any federal income tax. Hello, Bernie. There's chatter about negative interest rates coming to the United States. But first, how will comments in Houston by the Saudi oil minister affect the markets, oil and stocks? Maury, as we know, the price of oil is in direct reflection of what happens in the stock market. If it goes up, it goes up. If it goes down, it goes down.
Because it affects so many different type of companies, manufacturing companies. It affects all kind of companies making of derivatives from oil, and
trucking, transportation, getting products to market,
and also the fact that this is something we have no control over. And suddenly we see, my God, 70% of the price of oil back on June 30th, 2014, is now down to $30. It's a shock. There've been, you know how many people have been fired from the overall energy industry, and this is what I got when I was down in Houston for 3 days.
Couple million?
Not that many. It's about 750 to 800,000, but there's many more right now waiting to be terminated if this thing keeps going.
And you just came back from Houston, right?
Yes.
There's panic in Houston over this, is there not?
I would say that's exactly the perfect word. It is panic, and it's panic that's evolving. It's Houston. If you went to Houston 2 years ago, I mean, everything was blooming. They were building buildings. They were expanding. They were bringing people in. They were not only talking about the Houston area, they were talking about exports, they were talking about imports, they were talking about shipping down into Central and South America, they were talking about converting natural gas into liquid natural gas and then setting up ports to ship it out. I mean, there were all kind of wonderful things that would have doubled, tripled some of the aspects of our economy. And now this thing has just absolutely fallen on its own sword.
And it's also affected the Bakken Belt, North Dakota, South Dakota, that entire area. Last year, people were clamoring to get there. They didn't have enough housing for these people.
You are absolutely right. But the Bakken Belt was the example of a couple states, North and South Dakota, agrarian states. There was nothing going on. It was they were down to the bare knuckles of growing.
I remember seeing job fairs about 1.5 years ago here. They could not get people fast enough up there to work the oil rigs in the fields.
Not only that, though, they didn't have any housing for them.
Right.
They were living in mobile vans.
Right.
And this thing has gotten itself turned around. First of all, the ones that are getting hurt the most are the fracking type of oil drilling capabilities, and those need a high level of price.
At what point is it profitable to do fracking? How much money per barrel do you have to see?
It's gone.
45?
Pardon me?
45?
No. It's at minimum of $50. They're a little more comfortable at $60.
So at 50. They're at a break-even kind of point. They're treading water.
Bare break-even, but at 50, they're not spending more money to expand it. Okay, there's retention at 50. At 60, they might start doing it, and then from then on, and this, of course, is
at 30, it's just a loser.
No, it's a losing proposition. It's how quickly can you shut down the drilling that's going on through the fracking process.
So what happened in Houston recently? There was a big meeting with a lot of the oil ministers.
This was a fascinating meeting because they didn't have a lot of publicity. I didn't even know about it. You know, I was in Houston just almost less than a week before that, and nobody was talking about this. All they said was that the heads of the big companies, Chevron, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, all the big ones were getting together in some kind of meeting. The meeting was based on the visit of the Saudi Arabian oil minister, Ali al-Amani, and this guy has really been the dictator of the world oil industry for the last 20 years. You know, I couldn't believe it when I read. I wrote a little bit about him for this coming weekend, and this is the guy that set the pattern for the King Salman, who by the way is not all there anymore. You know, these royalties in Saudi, they do what their predecessors did, and they've always depended on the United States to pat them on the head and defend them. Saudis have gotten away with murder, really, since they became a state. back in the early 20s.
So should we have let Saddam go all the way to Saudi Arabia?
Well, it's don't ask me that question because some people will probably call in and say I'm one-sided. I'll let that speak for itself.
But we did save their butt.
Oh, we say he was ready to after taking Kuwait. He was ready to move right in there. There's no question about it. And George H.W. Bush did a very good job. You know, Desert Storm, the good move into Iraq came with George H.W. Bush. The bad Iraq deal came with his son. But, you know, he not only didn't we lose any money on the deal because he got money from all the other countries around there that were willing to pitch in to get Saddam out of Kuwait and push him back. And then there was a lot of complaining that why didn't he go all the way to Baghdad? You know, I got to say, the old man was smart. He crushed that army. You know, remember Saddam was saying it was going to be the mother of all battles. I mean, they cracked up when they heard the first gunfire, and then he sent the basic. Remember, he was sending not drones, but sending these Scuds against Israel, and Israel was ready to hit him back, and Bush talked to the Israeli prime minister, got him to hold off, and he says, well, give us a week or so before you do anything. And in about a week or so, they had that thing all taken care of. And this was roughly in 1990. And Schwarzkopf, remember General Schwarzkopf? Great general. It was a fabulous military
Back
operation.
when leaders were leaders.
Oh, that was a really...
They weren't just yes men. They weren't politicians wearing brass.
Yeah, and that was, it was just about the time that George H.W. Bush pretty much followed Reagan as far as foreign policy was concerned and turned out to be okay.
So what happened with the Saudi minister here in Houston?
Well, this is very interesting. He came in and he would go back to November 24th, 2014, when OPEC came together. And at that time, the price of oil was down from 100 plus to $80, and people were getting a little nervous. November 24th, 2014, and everybody expected OPEC to cut back, which they always did, in order to break the price. And to everybody's dismay, the Saudis said, no, we're going to increase our production because we're going to defend our markets. It's the Americans that have gone from 3.4 million at that time to 10 million. They're taking too much of the market, and so we're going to just keep producing. And when they did, then the Russians did the same thing. And nobody expected the price to go any lower after that, maybe than 70 or 60. Well, the thing fell all the way to 50, and then it picked up a little bit early in 2015. And then there was another meeting, and this time it was the same thing. The Saudis said, we're not cutting back. Every time it was the Saudis saying, no, we're not cutting back. And they let it fall to 30. So the question about Al-Amani, he comes here like a conquering hero. And he says to these heads of companies, and he says, listen, you better cut back, and if you can't meet the deal at $30, then you shouldn't be in the business. And we're prepared to go to $20, even though we lost $150 billion in our budget last year. We have, and he was very frank, he says we have close to $1 trillion in reserve, and we can stand it. And if we have to, we will.
How much of that has to do with positioning against the Iran-Russia situation?
Well, I think that's an excellent question because if he did anything, he stuck his stick in the eye of both countries, which are now allied together with the Russians being the senior partner. I think that's where the big blow up is going to happen. But I guess he felt that I was absolutely astounded. I mean, he sounded like a guy that said, now I'm in charge, and you guys your only chance is cut back, get rid of, don't have new capital investment, and stop this fracking and stop this oil sands and stop this drilling in the Gulf of Mexico and cut back severely, and then maybe we'll get the price to start moving up. But we're not cutting back again. He said it this time. So I think as we speak right now, I think something with 30, 60 days is going to happen.
There's more of a geopolitical game going on here than oil itself.
Not only a geopolitical game, it's like a thunderstorm that's coming over the sky, and the question is when is it going to bust wide open? It's almost like they're looking forward to it.
You walk around wondering how in the heck a guy like Bernie Sanders could be gaining the momentum that he's gaining and have the popularity that he has. It's almost shocking. And then he realized that 45% of all adult Americans are not paying any federal income taxes. Hello, Santa Claus. There you go right there, right?
Well, listen, if you were a college kid, especially one that isn't, doesn't find a job that's very high paid and little work done, you can, that's human nature. If somebody's giving you something for nothing, you'll take it. And he is absolutely getting a huge support from the millennials and the Operation X or the Generation X that comes after them and so on. Yeah, he's doing very well.
It's interesting, the socialist paradise that leftists always like to point to, one of them is Sweden. Well, Sweden just came out and said that they've got to get rid of universal health care because of the migrant crisis, and they're going to have to go to more independent health care. So socialism doesn't work ever. Never has.
Not only that, though, the countries, Sweden and Norway today, they're sellout countries. They don't care, just as long as they can get their little piece of the pie.
And look at Venezuela, another socialist utopia for leftists.
Well, but that's more like almost like a communist country because they have violence. They've had changes in beastly type of dictators that took over. And they are now having a budget deficit the size of it, what you can't even believe is happening. That country's falling apart, literally.
And oil again, that's their main
that's all they had.
Bread and butter.
Look, Russia has set up a fantastic piping system into the Balkans, the Baltics, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, because they controlled all that area for about 50 years. So they used the time to build one tremendous system, and now they got used to making a huge amount of money with it. And now they're not making anything, and now they're having the worst budget deficits they ever had.
Well, push vodka.
I don't think they got enough to
We need to
take
take
care
a
of the
quick
problem.
break. If you want to catch the show or catch up on a segment, just go to YouTube, search Morris Beschloss, or visit theworldreport.org. And when you're there, like and share your videos on all your social media.